All right, welcome to the deep dive. It feels like every week there's just this flood of tech updates, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Especially from the big cloud providers. Keeping track is practically a full-time job.
Exactly. And wading through release notes to find what actually matters for your work.
It's tough.
Yeah, separating the signal from the noise.
So that's what we're here for. Our mission is to cut through that noise, pull out the really impactful stuff, and talk about what it means for you.
Yep, focusing on the practical implications for technical folks.
This week, we're zoning in on Azure service updates. Specifically, things announced between June 23rd and June 26th, 2025.
A busy few days, it looks like.
Seems so. And we're not just going to list features. We want to get into the why. Why is this significant? What does it let you do differently?
Understanding the context, not just the announcement.
Precisely. Think of it as your shortcut to understanding the key changes without drowning in docs.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Let's kick off with what's generally available GA. Stuff you can use right now.
Okay, ready to roll. First up, something for high-performance compute needs. The Azure FX V2 series virtual machines are now GA.
Ah, yes, the FXV2.
Now, the key thing seems to be the processor. 5th generation Intel Xeon Platinum 8573C. Why is that chip and these VMs such a big deal if you've got demanding workloads?
Right, good question. It's more than just, a slightly faster clock speed. This 5th Gen Xeon Platinum, the 8573C, it has some pretty significant architectural improvements.
Okay, like what?
We're talking noticeable bumps in CPU performance and memory capacity per core compared to what we had before. For you, that means these VMs can chew through much more demanding, compute-intensive tasks.
So real-world examples.
Think complex financial modeling, risk analysis that used to take forever, or maybe scientific research, crunching huge genomic data sets, things that were maybe bottlenecked before. These FXV2s could seriously cut down processing times.
Right, potentially enabling stuff that wasn't even practical before, like real-time analytics on massive scales.
Exactly. It's about opening up new possibilities, computationally speaking, on Azure. It's a targeted performance boost for those really heavy compute scenarios.
So listeners should be thinking, if my current VMs are gasping for breath on CPU, maybe it's time to look at these. What kind of workloads are the prime candidates?
Yeah, definitely if your CPU is constantly pegged, but they're particularly well suited for things like EDA electronic design automation,
Okay.
complex simulations, finite element analysis, CFD, computational fluid dynamics, those kinds of HPC workloads.
Got it. So not just any CPU-hungry app, but ones where that raw compute power and memory bandwidth are critical.
Precisely. If you're hitting those limits, especially CPU or memory constraints for in-memory stuff, the FXV2 series is definitely worth putting on your evaluation list. It's about tackling the real bottlenecks.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears from compute power to, well, data security and governance. Azure NetApp Files has a pretty important update.
Ah, the key management one.
That's the one. It's now GA. You can seamlessly transition existing volumes from platform-managed keys, PMK, over to customer-managed keys, CMK,
And the crucial bit.
without data migration. Expert. Why is avoiding that data migration step such a massive operational win? Key management can be tricky.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, think about the old way. If you decided, okay, we need to manage our own keys now, maybe for compliance reasons,
Right.
you often had to copy all your data, re-encrypt it with the new CMK in your key vault, validate, then cut over your applications. It was disruptive.
Downtime, operational overhead, risk during the move.
Yeah, sounds like a pain.
A major pain. This update just, poof, eliminates that whole complex dance. Flip the switch, transition the volume from PNK to CMK, in place, no data movement.
Wow. So operationally simpler, faster. What does that unlock from a security and compliance perspective?
It means you get that full control over the key lifecycle rotations, renewals, revocations, the audit trail, without the massive operational barrier to entry.
Which is critical for regulated industries, right? Finance, healthcare. Absolutely. They often require CMK. Before, the sheer effort of migrating might have made teams hesitate or delay implementing CMK, even if they knew they should. Now, that barrier is basically gone. It lets you boost your security posture much more easily.
That really lowers the friction for a critical security practice. Good stuff. Okay, let's talk networking. Azure Virtual Network Manager, its IP address management feature, IPM, is now GA.
Right. IPM in VNet Manager.
Anyone who's dealt with large cloud deployments knows IP address sprawl can become a nightmare. How does this feature help network engineers avoid that headache?
Yeah, you said it. Nightmare. As you scale out, maybe across multiple subscriptions, regions, keeping track of IP ranges, avoiding overlaps, ensuring consistency, it gets messy fast. Spreadsheets, maybe?
Yeah, the dreaded IP spreadsheet.
Exactly. This VNet Manager IPM feature aims to fix that. It centralizes the IP planning and allocation. You get a single place to define your overall IP space and manage how it's carved up and assigned to different VNets.
A single pane of glass for IPs.
Pretty much. It helps ensure you're assigning non-overlapping ranges consistently, which is crucial for routing and just general sanity in large distributed networks. It moves you towards a more structured, less ad hoc approach.
So bringing order to that potential chaos, is it easy to adopt if you've already got a complex, maybe slightly organically grown IP schema?
That's the key question, isn't it? For new deployments, greenfield, it's straightforward. Define your space in VNet Manager first. Enforce it from day one. Best practice.
Makes sense.
For existing brownfield environments. Well, it requires some planning. It gives you the tools to see what you have and start consolidating and rationalizing it. But you need to put in the thought up front. The big win is it provides the capability to enforce consistency going forward and prevent future sprawl.
So a bit of effort perhaps to clean up the past, but a major win for managing future growth and complexity.
Exactly. Long-term benefit for network architects, for sure.
Okay, one more GA item, and this one hits the wallet directly. Azure Advisor has an update for VM Right-Sizing.
Ah, yes. Cost optimization.
This update expands the VM S-key support and series coverage for those recommendations. Specifically calls out including D, E, and F families now. How does covering more VM types make the advice better?
It makes the advice much more comprehensive and, frankly, more useful. Advisor's job is to spot VMs that are maybe over-provisioned for the work they're actually doing, right?
Right, paying for horsepower you don't need.
Exactly. But if Advisor didn't have good visibility or accurate performance models for certain VM families, like some of the popular D, E, or F series, its recommendations might have been incomplete or less precise.
So it might have missed opportunities.
Correct. By expanding this coverage, Advisor gets a more granular look at CPU performance and utilization across a wider slice of your VM estate. This means the recommendations you get, hey, maybe resize this VM down, are based on better data, more tailored.
Leading to potentially more confident actions and bigger savings.
That's the goal. More precise recommendations mean you can better identify waste, right-size more effectively, and cut costs without accidentally impacting performance. It's about refining that cost intelligence continuously.
So for listeners, this means advisors getting smarter about more of the VMs they probably use. Should this change how they use Advisor? Like, check it more often?
Well, Advisor's always running, always surfacing recommendations, but yeah, it probably warrants integrating these checks more formally into your regular reviews, maybe weekly, bi-weekly FinOps check-ins or operational reviews.
Keep an eye on it.
Definitely. Workloads change, needs evolve. Having this smarter advisor constantly analyzing means you can keep tuning your resource usage, trim that fat, and make sure you're running efficiently. Significant savings can add up over time.
Good advice. Okay, that wraps up the GA updates, stuff you can use today, but let's peek into the crystal ball. What's coming soon? Let's talk public previews.
All right, the bleeding edge, what's cooking?
First preview is for Azure Firewall policy. They're calling it draft and deploy. Sounds like a two-phase approach to policy management.
Ah, okay. This sounds interesting for network security teams.
Right. What's the pain point this is likely solving? Firewall changes can be stressful.
Understatement of the year for some teams. Traditionally, making almost any change to an Azure firewall policy, even a small rule tweak, could trigger a full redeployment of the configuration.
And that takes time.
It can, yeah. Depending on how complex your policy is, it might take several minutes. In a production environment, that's a noticeable disruption window. Plus, if you fat finger a rule, it could block the whole deployment.
Not ideal. So how does draft and deploy help?
It separates the making of the change from the applying of the change. You can create your changes, add rules, modify existing ones in a draft state, review it, maybe get approvals, iterate if needed.
Okay, like a staging area.
Exactly. Then, when you're confident, you trigger the deploy step. This should significantly cut down that disruptive window during the actual deployment and reduces the risk of pushing a bad config live inadvertently.
Sounds like much better agility and less risk for those critical firewall updates. Does it change how you think about auditing or versioning those policies?
It should actually make it cleaner. You have this distinct draft state you can review and validate before you commit it. That naturally fits better with good change management and version control. You know exactly what version you're deploying, Audit trails become clearer too. Here's the draft, here's when it was deployed.
Yeah, more enterprise-grade change control for firewall rules. Nice. Okay, next preview. This one's for the observability crowd, especially if you're using containers.
Okay, Prometheus maybe.
You got it. Azure Monitor Workspace now has a public preview for monitoring ingestion issues, specifically for Azure-managed Prometheus metrics. Why is monitoring the ingestion side of things so important?
This is crucial. It's about the reliability of your monitoring data itself. So you're scraping metrics with Prometheus, sending them into Azure Monitor Workspace. But what if some metrics are getting dropped on the way in?
Like errors during ingestion.
Exactly. Maybe due to throttling, formatting issues, whatever. If you don't know that's happening, your dashboards might look fine, but you could be missing critical data points. You're making decisions based on incomplete information.
The classic monitoring the monitor problem.
Precisely. This new feature lets you see those ingestion issues as platform metrics for the Azure Monitor Workspace itself. It gives you visibility into the health of your metric pipeline.
So you can trust the data that is showing up on your dashboard.
Exactly. It helps prevent those silent failures where you think you're covered, but you actually have blind spots. For SREs, DevOps teams, knowing their metrics are reliably landing is fundamental. It builds confidence in the whole monitoring stack.
Yeah, that layer of trust is essential. Okay, final preview item. Microsoft Cost Management is adding support for FOCIS 1.2.
FOCIS FinOps Open Cost and Usage Specification.
That's the one. Version 1.2 support is in preview for exporting cost data. What is FOCIS and why should FinOps teams care, especially if they're multi-cloud?
So FOCIS is basically an effort to create a standardized format, a common schema for cloud cost and usage data. Think of it like a universal translator for cloud bills.
Because every cloud provider has its own way of reporting costs, right?
Totally. Azure's format is different from AWS, which is different from GCP, different from on-prem tools. Trying to stitch that all together for a single view of your total cloud spend is a huge challenge. Nightmare for FinOps teams.
I can imagine. So FOCIS aims to standardize that.
Exactly. By supporting FOCIS 1.2 for exports, Microsoft Cost Management is letting you get your Azure cost data out in this common format. The idea is other providers and tools will adopt it too.
Making it easier to compare apples to apples, or at least oranges to oranges, across clouds.
That's the goal. The main benefit is data consistency and much easier reporting. If all your cost data conforms to one schema, you can feed it into third-party FinOps platforms or your own BI tools much more easily. Less custom transformation work for each source.
Streamlining the whole analysis process.
Definitely. It's a big step towards getting that true multi-cloud visibility and being able to manage costs effectively across your entire estate, not just in silos. It's foundational for mature FinOps practices.
Makes sense. Especially critical in hybrid or multi-cloud setups to get that clear, unified financial picture.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's do a quick wrap-up of this week's deep dive. We hit on some pretty key areas.
Yeah, it's quite a mix.
We saw big strides in compute with those FXV2 VMs offering serious power.
Yep, for those heavy workloads.
Critical security and compliance wins, like the seamless PMK to CMK key transition for NetApp Files. It's huge operationally.
You definitely removes a major hurdle.
Streamlined network management with the VNet Manager IPM feature going GA.
Bringing order to IP chaos.
And then a bunch of improvements around operational insights and cost governance. The Advisor Right-Sizing update, the Firewall draft and deploy preview.
The Prometheus ingestion monitoring, giving you trust in your metrics.
And that FOCIS 1.2 support in cost management, aiming for cross-cloud consistency.
Quite a range.
Yeah. Our goal, like always, was just to pull out these threads, give you a concise look at what's new and why it might matter for your technical work.
And if you sort of step back and look at the bigger picture here, I think these updates, taken together, they really show Azure continuing to push on operational efficiency, enhancing security controls, and adding more sophisticated cost management tools.
A trend towards maturity.
Yeah, exactly. Each update might seem incremental, but they combine to make the platform more robust, easier to manage at scale, giving you more confidence. Which I know leads to an interesting question for you, the listener, to maybe mull over.
Well,
how might these updates, even though they seem kind of separate, how might they together change how you think about designing, deploying, or managing your applications on Azure in the next few months? What are the combined effects on your architecture or maybe just your team's day-to-day workflows?
that's a great point. Thinking about the synergy between these different improvements, Definitely something to reflect on how these updates might apply to your own projects and priorities.
Food for thought.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the latest from Azure.
Always a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful. We'll be back next time to unpack more developments. Thanks for listening.